Hey everyone! Today I'm sharing a story that's been tearing me apart for months. Imagine this. You're in a solid 3-year relationship with the woman you thought you'd marry. Your best friend, practically your brother, has been by your side for 20 years. Then, in the blink of an eye, everything you trusted and believed in is shattered. My 33 male best friend, 33 male, and wife, 26 female, discarded me to be together. So I thought I'd share my story here. I was 2.5 years into the relationship with my wife, and things started to fall apart towards the end. She would initiate breaks, we'd break up, get back together, and just have constant fights. During this entire time, I was confiding in my best friend with daily phone calls and hangouts. He was with me every step of the way, convinced me to break up with my wife, and once I did, he could not be reached as soon as things really went south. I come to find out, it all began because my wife had been cheating with him the entire time. Now that they have moved in together, I just feel like such an idiot. I completely trusted him. Blind faith. I never thought he would ever do this to me. My wife of 2.5 years crushed me too, but I have been friends with this guy since childhood, and to find out he would play me like this has turned my world upside down. How can I be such a terrible judge of character? Any info that may elicit questions on how I knew, it was because either friends or family filled me in after D-Day. My best friend is someone who I have known since high school. We were in the same homeroom, and were inseparable after that. Basically brothers from another mother. You know the whole spiel. We kept zero secrets, and were an open book to each other. Our dating lives, relationships, dirty laundry, etc. You name it. He knew everything about me, and I knew everything about him. Even though he may be my best friend, I would never introduce any women I know to date him, because his dating life has been a complete disaster. He has had 4 exes, 2 of which cheated on him. One was sleeping with multiple men. The second one was two-timing with another man for a year. He cheated on his 3rd girlfriend and dumped her to be with his 4th. He also hits up prostitutes regularly. His mother is wealthy, so he has never had to work a day in his life. His mom just sends him money. Meanwhile, I was a virgin and had never had any contact with any women until this relationship. The events. I met my wife through a dating app back on January 13th, 2019. Our connection was instant, and we hit it off right from the start. Our first date was magical, filled with laughter, deep conversations, and a sense of ease that made me feel like I had known her forever. From that first date to the end of 2020, things were generally going well. We traveled a lot, exploring new cities, trying different cuisines, and creating a treasure trove of memories. We also spent a lot of time with my best friend Mike and his girlfriend Emily, whom he had been with for around 4 years at the time. Our weekends were often spent together, whether it was a road trip to the mountains or a quiet evening playing board games. The 4 of us became an inseparable group, sharing countless moments of joy and camaraderie. When the pandemic hit, it shook up everyone's lives. Emily broke up with Mike and moved back to China, leaving him heartbroken. During this time, it pretty much became just us 3 hanging out all the time. Mike needed support, and we were there for him. We would play video games for hours, watch movies until late at night, and just hang out together at our homes, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. When the restaurants started opening up, we would go out to eat, and sometimes Mike would also take my wife out to dinner. At first, I didn't think anything of it because she lived close by to the places he would go to eat. I thought nothing of it, and their outings became more and more frequent. I felt off as she came home later and later, but I didn't question it because he was my best friend of 20 years, and she would always send me pictures of the food and tell me that she was grabbing dinner with him. January 2021. I started helping out my wife's family to renovate a new house they just got. It was a big project, and they needed all the help they could get. During this time, I had already returned to work for 2 days a week. The remainder of the 5 days, I would go help renovate the house. It was exhausting but rewarding work, and I felt good about contributing to something important for her family. By the end of March, I had broken my wrist tossing out wooden planks. It was a nasty break that required wrist surgery, which left me incapacitated for weeks. My wife was supportive at first, helping me with my recovery, but her patience seemed to wear thin as time went on. Then her birthday came up on April 29th. April 29th. I had planned a trip for her that involved the 29th and 30th. We went to a beautiful resort, enjoying the serene environment and each other's company. On the 30th, as we were coming back home, Mike wanted to give her a birthday cake as well and waited for us to come back. He had also gifted her a custom-engraved iPad for her birthday, which she was ecstatic over. It was a thoughtful gift, something that showed he knew her well and cared about her interests. I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy, but I pushed it aside, telling myself that it was just a friendly gesture. May, week 1. A week later, she calls me up to break up with me, stating she didn't see a future with me because I didn't make enough money. She said that I was lazy and had to find a second job, and that I didn't have the luxury of playing games all day like Mike, who doesn't have to work because he's rich. Her words cut deep, leaving me feeling worthless and inadequate. I was also not the first one to wish her a happy birthday at 12 a.m. I was 2 minutes late. I asked her who it was that had wished her a happy birthday earlier than me, and she replied with, "You don't need to know." I have come to learn that it was my best friend Mike. May, between week 2 and 3. A couple of weeks after the breakup, I called up Mike to confide in him that I had broken up with her. Before this, I had never shared any of my issues with my wife with him. He had no idea that I was suffering and going through this pain. Apparently, he had already invited her out for dinner a few days earlier and told me he had no idea we broke up and that she didn't mention anything about me when they were together. He told me to never hesitate to reach out and that he was already there for me, which I took up and either hung out or called him up to talk every day for at least 2 hours per phone call. Mike's support was a lifeline for me during those dark days, even though I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. May, week 3. As the weeks went by, I found myself relying more and more on Mike's companionship. He was always there, always ready to listen, and his presence became a constant source of comfort. However, the nagging doubt about his intentions and the nature of his relationship with my wife never truly left my mind. She calls me up one evening, asking if we could give our relationship another shot. Despite everything that had happened, I found myself agreeing to get back together. For the next few weeks, everything seemed to be falling back into place. We had serious conversations about our future, discussing how we could save money to move in together next year. We even planned a 3-day vacation with a group of friends, including my best friend Mark. When I mentioned our plans to Mark, he pulled me aside for a serious talk. "You need to reconsider moving in with her," he advised. "Remember, she broke up with you right when you broke your wrist. That's a huge red flag. She put you through hell all this time. Do you really think she's going to change? Can you truly envision spending the rest of your life with someone like that?" His words hit me hard. They were logical, sensible, and I couldn't ignore them. I nodded in agreement, realizing the truth in his advice. May, week 4 to June, week 3. As the days passed, I started attending therapy sessions for my wrist post-surgery. There, I met a few attractive women, and I casually mentioned them to Mark. The more I reflected on my relationship, the more doubts crept in. The initial breakup, along with our past issues, made me question everything. I confided in Mark about my uncertainties and even considered ending things with her. Maybe, just maybe, I could ask out one of these women from therapy. Mark's response took me by surprise. He suggested, "Don't break up with her just yet. Keep her in the dark. Ask out the women from therapy. And if things work out with them, you can make the transition. Your wife can be a backup plan." The thought of this plan left me distressed. I cried for days, tormented by the idea of deceiving her and the potential emotional devastation it would cause. Ultimately, I couldn't go through with it. Hurting her in that way and wasting her time was something I couldn't bear. I knew I would hate myself forever if I did. June, week 3. Determined to make things work, I immersed myself in reading online relationship advice. I had multiple tabs open with articles titled, "When to Break Up," "How do you know if she's worth sticking around for," and other related topics. One evening, she came over and saw the open tabs on my laptop. Her face changed, and she began questioning me. Our conversation quickly escalated into a heated argument. She accused me of having feelings for someone else. In a moment of vulnerability, she admitted that someone else had asked her out during our relationship, but she had turned him down because she was committed to me. In her frustration, she texted Mark, telling him she wasn't going on the trip with us anymore. I took a deep breath and explained to her that while I had doubts, My intention was to work through them. I reminded her of the 3 years we had spent together and how much I cared for her. I assured her that I was in this for the long haul and wanted to give our relationship my best effort. After a long and emotional conversation, we managed to make up. We decided to go on that trip, hoping it would help us reconnect and rebuild our bond. June, week 4. My best friend had just moved into a new apartment, a sleek and modern space that he was eager to turn into his ultimate bachelor pad. He was busy buying furniture and setting up equipment, creating the perfect environment to jump back into the dating scene. Excited about his fresh start, he had invited me over to help him set up. The apartment was scattered with boxes and flat-packed furniture from IKEA, including a couple of large, high-definition televisions, a stylish table, and a new bed frame that needed assembly. We spent the entire afternoon and evening unpacking, sorting parts, and putting everything together. The process was tedious, but also somewhat therapeutic. We reminisced about old times and shared a few laughs as we struggled with the notoriously tricky IKEA instructions. His determination to get everything perfect was evident, especially as he was also making significant changes in his life. He had started working out diligently, focusing on both weight training and cardio, and the results were impressive. He had shed a significant amount of weight, and his newfound confidence was palpable. After we finally finished assembling the bed, he looked around the apartment, satisfied with the progress. He turned to me, gratitude in his eyes, and thanked me profusely. I shrugged it off, telling him, "Nah, no problem. You've been there for me every step of the way through this darkest time of my life, and I would do the same for you. This is nothing." It was true. His support had been unwavering during my tumultuous times, and I wanted to be there for him as he embarked on this new chapter. He also reassured me, somewhat cryptically, that he never told her anything during the times they hung out. June 30th. That evening turned out to be the last time I would be able to reach him through phone calls or texts. Earlier that day, he had picked up my call, and we chatted briefly about his apartment and our plans for the weekend. But later that night, when I tried calling him again, he didn't pick up. I sent a few texts, but there was no response. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Days went by without any word from him, and I grew increasingly worried and confused. It wasn't until much later that he revealed the reason behind his sudden disappearance. He had been having dinner with her that night, and didn't want to make things awkward by answering my calls. This revelation stung, as it marked the first time she had gone out with him without informing me, aside from the period during our brief breakup. July 9th. The next time I saw or made contact with him was on our planned trip. He was the designated driver, as he had a spacious car perfect for the journey. Previously, whenever the three of us hung out, I would always sit up front with him while my wife sat in the back seat. However, this time she claimed, it was a long trip and she gets carsick, so she sat in the front the entire time. Throughout the vacation, my best friend was unusually generous. He covered all the expenses, including our tickets, meals, and various activities. My wife seemed to gravitate towards him, spending the entire trip by his side. They ran off together to play in the arcades, gamble at the casino, and explore the sights, leaving me behind with our other friends. One evening, one of my friends pulled me aside and confided that there had been some gossiping within the group. They had been taking pictures of my wife and my best friend together, whispering amongst themselves and asking whose girlfriend she was. The suspicion and rumors were humiliating, but I tried to brush them off, focusing instead on making the most of the trip. Despite my efforts, the 3-day trip was filled with tension and discomfort. My wife and I did not share any intimate moments, which only added to the growing sense of alienation and betrayal. During the ride back, after we had dropped off everyone else, I was the last one in the car with him. The atmosphere was awkward, but we made small talk. He casually mentioned that he had visited the same place the previous week with an ex-girlfriend, which was why he knew all the best spots to eat and have fun. His familiarity with the place suddenly made sense, but it also raised more questions. I gathered the courage to ask him why he had stopped picking up my calls. He claimed he had been busy setting up the internet and putting the final touches on his apartment. However, the truth was far more unsettling. I later discovered that the trip we had just taken was originally planned for my wife alone, a special getaway he had organized so she wouldn't miss out. My reconciliation with her had inadvertently disrupted his plans, revealing a layer of deceit I hadn't anticipated. End of July and July 25th. My birthday was fast approaching, and a sense of dread loomed over me as I noticed a significant shift in my wife's behavior. In the week leading up to my birthday, she grew increasingly distant. Her texts became sporadic, and at times she wouldn't respond at all. This was completely out of character for her. The night before my birthday, she came over so we could celebrate together the next day. As midnight approached, I waited eagerly, hoping for a warm, affectionate birthday wish. Instead, she mumbled a detached, "Happy birthday," at 12:05 a.m. I tried to initiate intimacy, but she brushed me off, something that had never happened before. We eventually did have sex, but it was mechanical and devoid of any real connection. Little did I know, this would be our last intimate moment together. The actual day of my birthday was a disaster. She seemed entirely disconnected, taking me out to eat and giving me a present, but she left halfway through the day, claiming she had work to complete. Her departure left a gaping void, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. This would be the last time I saw her in person. The combination of the recent vacation and her cold behavior made me feel utterly miserable. By the following week, I was on the verge of calling it quits. Week of July 30th. The days following my birthday were filled with emptiness. We engaged in random texting and late-night FaceTime calls, but there was no real emotion behind them. On Friday, July 30th, I decided to stop texting her altogether. She didn't reach out to me either until 5 p.m. after work. When I finally called her, we got into a heated argument. We never explicitly said we were breaking up, but the conversation ended on a sour note. I was fed up with her attitude and said some petty, angry things. I asked why she didn't get me a birthday card or cake, and she replied that she had bought a card but didn't know what to write because she feared I would leave her. She didn't get a cake because she was afraid it would be the last time I made a wish in front of her. In a fit of anger, I told her I didn't care about her, and she hung up on me. Mid-August, I didn't contact her for the next 2 weeks. Then she texted me, informing me that her father would come over to drop off my belongings and collect hers. When her father arrived, he had no idea what was going on between us. He asked me to work things out with her and expressed his hope that we would reconcile. He encouraged me to keep in touch. August 28th, D-Day. From the vacation until this day, 6 weeks had passed, and 2 months if you included the last time I had spoken to my best friend aside from the trip. I had been trying to reach out to him, but he never picked up my calls or responded to my texts. On this day, while at work, one of our mutual friends called me. He said that my best friend had called him that morning to share some shocking news. My wife had moved in with him, and they were now officially dating. My best friend had asked him to keep it a secret from me, but instead, our mutual friend immediately called to tell me the truth. I was absolutely devastated. That same night, my best friend finally reached out to me. He called to confess everything. Mind you, I'm in a complete state of shock, so I'm answering incoherently and asking stupid questions. Him: "Hey, how've you been? If you haven't already realized it by now, I'm dating Sarah. It just happened. I had no choice. I was feeling suicidal if I didn't see her. Just being with her made me happy. She doesn't want to see you or speak to you. I'll always have your best interest at heart. She was terrible for you, but perfect for me." I asked him why he gave her a custom iPad engraved with her name and in her favorite color, and how he even knew when her birthday was. He said he just wanted to see her happy, and it didn't mean any more than that. I would find out that he did months of research, snooping on her social media and stalking her Facebook feeds to find out the relevant information. He had gone to extreme lengths to know everything about her, every detail that would make her smile, while I was completely in the dark. I asked him when and what made him ask her out to dinner dates. He told me it was because he saw that we were already having issues. She was mistreating me and being very disrespectful towards me, and that he liked her, so he saw this opening that he had to take a chance on and shoot his shot, and that he was absolutely floored. She agreed to go out with him. He painted this picture as if he was rescuing her from a bad situation, completely disregarding how it would affect me. I asked him why he never asked me to go along with him when they were going on one-on-one dinner dates, driving her around to fancy restaurants with all expenses paid. He tells me, "I didn't want to bother you. You were busy. I didn't consider those dates. I just wanted to see her because I would feel suicidal if I didn't see her." Only being close to her made me feel alive and happy. Don't worry. Until you two broke up, I never laid my hands on her, never touched her. I wouldn't do that to you. I said, you do know that is emotional cheating, right? You two have been cheating on me. His response, if that's the way you see it, then I'm sorry. I asked him if given the chance to redo this whole situation, would he readily throw me under the bus and pull this stunt again? He said, absolutely, 10-10, she's my soulmate. And that he'd be shocked if he doesn't marry her. She's a terrible match with you, but she's perfect with me. The certainty in his voice was chilling, as if he had no regrets about betraying our friendship. I asked why he would pursue her and get together with her when I literally kept no secrets about all her red flags to him. His response was, I feel like you made many mistakes and caused these issues to spiral out of control. I can handle her. I actually like these red flags. It makes things more exciting. He seemed to relish in the chaos that she brought into his life, something I had tried so hard to avoid. I told him that if she was willing to cheat on me, she would cheat on him in the future as well, and he said, that's totally a possibility. It's a risk I'm willing to take. I'm willing to give my girlfriend a one-time pass for cheating. His casual acceptance of potential betrayal was baffling, as if he had already made peace with the idea of being hurt. I asked him why he would do this to me and make my life miserable. He had 4 exes, and the first 2 cheated on him multiple times, and he cheated on his 3rd girlfriend and dumped her to be with his 4th. So I asked him, you've experienced the pain of being cheated on. Why would you do this to me? His response was, I didn't think it'd be that bad. Give it some time. You'll get over it. Weren't you going to ask out that therapy girl? You're still young. There's plenty of fish out in the sea. We are the same age. His nonchalant attitude towards my pain was infuriating, as if my feelings were insignificant compared to his happiness. I asked him how was the sex, and he responded with, it's all right, you can find better out there. His bluntness was like a slap in the face, reducing my relationship to a mere physical comparison. I asked him how it didn't bother him or if he thought of me when he's having sex with her. He says, when you have sex with enough women, you don't think about that stuff. He has also had sex with hundreds of prostitutes. His detachment from any emotional connection during sex was disturbing, showcasing a side of him I never knew existed. I told him that we never broke up and that we only got into an argument on July 30th. He tells me that he had no idea and that she called him to see him on August 1st, 2 days after our fight, and she was all over him. He said that was when he knew that we were over. Then he added, this last month, she's been living with me and staying over pretty much 70% of the time. She's my live-in girlfriend now. During this time, a few days before this phone call, my mom, who was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer around 5 years ago, was told to stop taking the medications because they were no longer working, and she was too weak to receive further treatment. So she's basically on hospice care now. I told my friend if he wanted to visit her one last time because I didn't know whether she'd be around after another year or not. He said he'd love to, but he can't. My last question to him was, am I your best friend? He replies with, of course it's not even close. You helped me out during my darkest times, and I'll always remember that. I told him, you weren't there for me during my darkest time. You were nowhere to be found. And now I find out instead, you were the perpetrator all along. He said, I'm sorry you feel that way. We end the phone call with him telling me that he's going to lay low for 6-12 months and that he won't be hanging out with me during this time. He tells me not to listen to what any of my peers and family say about cutting him off and that he'll always be friends with me and that he cares deeply about me. He told me this entire time of no contact. He was actually really worried about me and wanted to check up on me all this time, but he was really busy, and that tonight was the first time he had time to talk to me. For our final words, he said to only contact him if it pertains to separating and closing any joint accounts and bills that I still share with Sarah. If it doesn't relate to that issue, do not reach out to him. Basically, if I want to contact Sarah at all, I have to go through him first. I've also come to realize my wife has blocked me from every social media platform, phone, etc., and she cannot be reached for me to get any sense of closure. I've since sent her 2 emails to talk and gain closure, to tell her how much I hurt her and pushed her away. That my inability and coldness drove her to seek the warmth and comfort of my best friend. That I was truly sorry for everything, and that if she wanted to move on and date him, I would give them my blessings. All I ask is for her to have one final conversation with me for closure, for our last 3 years together to mean something instead of the way it ended in complete ghosting. I have also contacted her father, who said he would talk to me after talking to her, but he has never reached out since. I'm absolutely gutted and devastated. I've not only lost my wife, whom I had at one point considered proposing to and starting a family with, but I have also lost my closest friend, with whom I have shared more than half my lifetime and half my memories. Losing my wife of 3 years was bad enough, but losing my best friend through this treachery. I'm in shambles. I see them living large, going on vacations and having the time of their lives on social media, and meanwhile, I'm here losing 2 of the closest people in my life aside from my family, and soon my mother as well. I get nightmares of them laughing and smiling at each other while having sex on the bed I helped put together. It haunts me, and I get sleepless nights over it. I get random pangs of pain in my chest, and it keeps me wide awake. I just want to wake up from all of this, to find out that none of this is real. I just don't understand how he could destroy my relationship so badly. This is my first ever relationship, and he just had to steal my first woman. When we argued on July 30th, it felt like just another bump in the road. I never imagined it would lead to this level of betrayal. 2 days later, she was already with him, and now they're practically living together. It's like our entire relationship meant nothing to her. She moved on so quickly and easily, while I'm left to pick up the pieces. It's hard to fathom how someone you love and trust can turn around and hurt you so deeply. My mom's illness only adds to the weight I'm carrying. Knowing that she's on hospice care and that I might lose her soon is unbearable. I wanted my friend to be there for me, to offer some support, but he couldn't even do that. It's like he's erased himself from my life just when I need him the most. The fact that he's now with my wife makes it all the more painful. It's a double betrayal that I never saw coming. His words keep echoing in my mind. I'm sorry you feel that way. It's such a dismissive apology, like my feelings don't matter at all. Each time I replay that moment, the sting intensifies. He's going to lay low for 6, 12 months. But what about me? I'm the one left dealing with the fallout, the emotional wreckage that he has so carelessly inflicted. He tells me not to listen to others about cutting him off, but how can I not? He's the reason I'm in this mess in the first place. He says he cares deeply about me, but actions speak louder than words. If he truly cared, he wouldn't have done this to me. It's all just empty rhetoric designed to absolve himself of guilt. Every attempt I make to reach out to Sarah is blocked. It's like she's disappeared off the face of the earth, leaving me stranded with no closure. I've sent her countless emails, each one pouring out my heart, admitting my faults, and asking for a final conversation. But there's been no response. I even reached out to her father, hoping he could help bridge the gap. But he's gone silent too. It's like the entire world is conspiring to keep me in the dark, to keep me in this state of perpetual anguish. The silence is deafening and cruel, amplifying my sense of abandonment. The pain is relentless. It's not just the loss of my wife and best friend. It's the betrayal and the unanswered questions that gnaw at me day and night. I see them on social media, flaunting their happiness, living their best lives while I'm stuck in this never-ending nightmare. The images of them together, happy and carefree, are like daggers to my heart. It's a daily reminder of my loss, my hurt, and my loneliness. And all the while, my mom's condition worsens, adding another layer of sorrow to my already heavy burden. It feels like I'm being crushed under the weight of it all, with no respite in sight. I'm haunted by the thought of them together. The bed I helped put together, once a symbol of our future, is now a symbol of their betrayal. I can't escape the mental images of them being intimate, and it tears me apart. Sleepless nights have become my new normal, with random pangs of pain in my chest that keep me wide awake. I just want to wake up and find out this was all a bad dream. But reality is cruel and unyielding. I don't understand how he could do this to me, how he could destroy my relationship and take away the person I loved. His betrayal has shattered my world, leaving me to pick up the pieces alone. This was my first ever relationship, and he stole that from me. My trust, my love, my future plans, all shattered by his actions. The woman I wanted to propose to start a family with, is now with the man I called my best friend. It's a level of hurt and betrayal that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Every memory we created is now tainted. Every dream we shared is now a painful reminder of what could have been. I'm left with nothing but questions and a broken heart, trying to navigate a future that now feels uncertain and bleak.